January 18th, 2026. RAF Lakenheath, United Kingdom. 12 F-15E Strike Eagles spin up their engines. Fully armed, extra fuel tanks, long-range loadout. They're deploying to the Middle East. Combat ready and mission undisclosed. Within hours, the aircraft disappeared from European radar, supported by a KC-135 Stratotanker refueling aircraft crossing the Mediterranean. 2 days later, U.S. Central Command confirms their arrival with a single photograph posted on social media. No explanation, no details, just a message. The F-15's presence enhances combat readiness and promotes regional security and stability. Translation: we're here, we're armed, and we're watching. But the Strike Eagles aren't alone. Somewhere in the Indian Ocean, the USS Abraham Lincoln carrier strike group steaming northwest at full speed. Destination: the Persian Gulf. On deck sit Marine F-35C Lightning IIs from Fighter Attack Squadron 314, Navy FA-18 Super Hornets, EA-18G Growlers loaded with anti-radiation missiles designed to obliterate air defense systems. Naval movements like this don't happen by accident. And aboard Air Force One, flying back from the World Economic Forum in Davos, President Donald Trump makes the threat explicit. We have a massive fleet heading in that direction. Maybe we don't have to use it, but we're watching them very closely. He pauses, then adds one more line. We have an armada heading in that direction. Their target? Iran. In just 3 weeks of protests, the government has killed over 5,000 people already. Probably the deadliest crackdown since the 1979 Islamic Revolution. And this time, Trump isn't bluffing. Fires rage across the country. It all ignited on December 28, 2025, when years of financial strain finally tipped the balance. The Iranian rial, which was already weak at the time, finally collapsed overnight. Traders in Tehran took to the streets, furious at inflation that had erased their savings. Within days, the protests spread across the country. It wasn't just about Tehran or other major cities anymore. People were raising new demands. End corruption, end oppression, end the regime. Frustration quickly became a nationwide roar. By January 5th, millions of Iranians were in the streets. Workers, students, shopkeepers, teachers, even government employees joined in. But the government's response was swift and brutal. Security forces opened fire with live ammunition. Automatic weapons trained on crowds with no warning nor hesitation, just orders to kill. Videos began surfacing even before the internet went dark. People were being shot in the chest, in the head, their lives ending in the streets. Revolutionary Guard units dragged bodies away, leaving silence in their wake. Hospitals turned away the wounded, too terrified of arrest to help. The government was clearly trying to silence the country in real time, but the horror refused to stay hidden. By January 8th, the government had made its move. They cut the country off completely. Internet access disappeared, international phone lines were blocked, and Iran became a black box. The outside world stopped seeing what was happening inside. The protests, the bloodshed, the fear. It all went dark at once, leaving the world to imagine what horrors were unfolding behind the silence. But the killing didn't stop. Human rights activists' news agency, known as HRANA, by mid-January they reported over 5,000 people killed, over 26,800 arrested. That death toll exceeds every protest, every uprising, every period of unrest in Iran since 1979. The United Nations estimates the toll even higher, and the UN Human Rights Commissioner, Volker Turk, addressed an emergency session in Geneva. I call on the Iranian authorities to reconsider, to pull back, and to end their brutal repression. This is a pattern of subjugation and overwhelming force that can never address people's grievances. Iran responded with even more arrests, more executions, and a clear warning to stay out. Commander General Mohammad Pakpour's public statement left no room for doubt. The message was simple: any interference would have consequences. However, General Ali Abdullahi al-Ibadi, who heads Iran's Joint Command Headquarters, went even further, publicly declaring that if the United States launched military strikes, all American interests in the region would be treated as legitimate targets. And the threat was real. The United States maintains thousands of personnel across the Middle East. Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar alone hosts more than 10,000 troops and functions as the forward headquarters of U.S. Central Command, making it one of the most critical American installations in the region. That attack came after U.S. and Israeli forces struck Iranian nuclear facilities in a 12-day conflict that ended with American B-2 Spirit bombers dropping bunker-busting munitions on enrichment sites deep underground. In June 2025, during Operation Midnight Hammer, Iranian forces launched ballistic missiles directly at Al Udeid. It was meant to be decisive, but it wasn't. Iran rebuilt and reinforced its military might, and now, 7 months later, the regime is unleashing extreme force to crush dissent at home in one of the deadliest crackdowns. Trump watched, and then he acted. The deployment didn't happen overnight. Every move was deliberate, calculated, and meant to send a message without a single shot being fired. First came the fighter jets. The 494th Fighter Squadron from RAF Lakenheath, F-15E Strike Eagles, two-seat, long-range strike fighters built to carry massive payloads across continents. The sheer firepower they bring is a warning in itself. They're built to penetrate enemy airspace, destroy hardened targets, and fight their way back out. And they have experience in this theater. During Iran's April 2024 drone and missile attack on Israel, F-15Es from the 494th Squadron shot down over 80 Iranian drones using missiles and, in some cases, attempted to drop guided bombs on slow-moving targets. Since then, the U.S. has equipped them with advanced precision kill weapon system rockets. Laser-guided, cheap, effective against drones, each 15E can carry dozens of them. Now, 3 full squadrons of Strike Eagles are deployed across the Middle East. 12 aircraft per squadron, 36 fighters in total. It's pure strike capability, ready to hit targets anywhere in the region. But the real power is coming by sea. The USS Abraham Lincoln became a floating airbase. A Nimitz-class nuclear-powered giant over 1,000 feet long, capable of launching 90 sorties a day in sustained operations. Every inch of deck, every catapult and hangar is designed for one purpose: overwhelming force. Her air wing includes Marine F-35C Lightning IIs, 5th-generation stealth fighters with advanced sensors and radar-evading capabilities. In Operation Midnight Hammer, F-35s suppressed Iranian air defenses and escorted B-2 bombers deep into enemy territory. They deployed without being detected, without taking fire, and without losing a single aircraft. The carrier hosts Navy F-A-18 Super Hornets, multi-role fighters capable of striking ground targets, engaging enemy aircraft, and conducting reconnaissance. Proven, reliable, lethal. And then there are the EA-18G Growlers, electronic attack aircraft with the job of jamming enemy radars, disrupting communications, and firing anti-radiation missiles that home in on air defense systems and destroy them. In any conflict with Iran, Growlers would lead the assault, blinding Iranian defenses, opening corridors for strike aircraft to penetrate deep into the country. Supporting the carrier are guided missile destroyers, Arleigh Burke-class warships that are equipped with Aegis combat systems. Each destroyer carries Tomahawk cruise missiles, capable of hitting targets over 1,000 miles away with pinpoint accuracy. The Lincoln Strike Group departed from the South China Sea in mid-January and is now crossing the Indian Ocean, and they're expected to arrive in the Persian Gulf by late January. When she arrives, the United States will have overwhelming firepower within striking distance of Tehran. Back in Washington, Trump made his position clear, publicly, aggressively, repeatedly. On January 17th, he told reporters it's time to look for new leadership in Iran. On January 20th, standing in the White House, he was asked directly about military action. We're just going to have to see what happens with Iran. There's a military option. He didn't elaborate. He didn't need to. The Armada heading toward the Persian Gulf spoke for itself. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, speaking in Davos, took credit for the protests. He said U.S. economic sanctions had collapsed Iran's economy, triggering the unrest. Maximum economic sanctions worked because in December their economy collapsed. We saw a major bank go under. The central bank started printing money. There's a dollar shortage. They can't get imports. That's why people took to the streets. He called it economic statecraft. No shots fired. Just financial pressure designed to destabilize the regime from within. But economic pressure only works if the regime fears something worse. And right now, that fear is the U.S. Navy. The Pentagon hasn't confirmed exact force levels, operational security. 3 F-15E squadrons, at least 36 strike fighters, a full carrier strike group with more than 60 aircraft, and multiple destroyers armed with Tomahawk missiles. Air defense systems are already in place around U.S. and Israeli bases, and additional assets are still being positioned. Every movement signals the U.S. is ready for war. The U.K. has also deployed RAF Eurofighter Typhoons to Qatar at Doha's request. France and other European allies have quietly increased their readiness levels in the region. Now, the real question isn't whether the United States can strike Iran, it's whether it will. 2 weeks ago, Trump came dangerously close to giving the order. But he pulled back because there was no guarantee of regime change. Striking without a plan for what comes next risks chaos, and they don't want to collapse Iran, flooding the region with refugees and armed militias. So Trump held fire, but the Armada kept moving. The threat itself became the weapon. Iran knows what's coming. Destroyer groups are closing in. The carrier strike group is positioning for launch operations. Fighter squadrons are arming at forward bases. Every day the Armada draws nearer. Every day the pressure mounts. Every day Trump doesn't strike, the regime wonders if today is the day. For now, the protests have subsided. The internet blackout worked. The brutal crackdown worked. Fear drove people off the streets, and for the moment, the streets are silent. But the conditions that sparked the protests haven't changed. The economy is still collapsing, inflation is still raging, and the Iranian people haven't forgotten. Funerals for the dead continue, drawing thousands of mourners into the streets. Even in grief, voices rise in unison. Death to the dictator. As of late January 2026, the USS Abraham Lincoln is in the Arabian Sea. F-15E squadrons are operating from bases in the Gulf. Air defense systems are online. Tomahawk-equipped destroyers are on station. Everything is in place. So the Armada waits, positioned, armed, ready, watching Iran, waiting for the order that could change everything. So here's the question. If you were the president and faced with 5,000 dead protesters, a collapsing economy, and a regime that shows no signs of backing down, what would you do? Launch airstrikes and risk regional chaos? Continue sanctions and hope the regime collapses from within? Or pull back and let Iran handle its own internal crisis? Drop your answer in the comments. I want to hear your take. If you made it this far, hit like and subscribe for more real stories about global security and naval power. This isn't speculation. This is happening right now. And if you want to support the channel directly, join the fleet. You'll get loyalty badges, priority replies, and help us bring more stories like this to the surface. Click join on our channel page and get on board. Thanks for watching. The situation is fluid, the stakes are high, and the world is watching. I'll see you in the next one.